A recruitment email is sitting in your junk folder. It is March 2011. You work at a company whose entire business is trust. Your employer builds the small plastic tokens that sit on the keyrings of bankers, engineers, soldiers, and government staff all over the world. Every 60 seconds, those tokens display 6 new digits. Those 6 digits are what stand between an attacker and the most sensitive networks on the planet. And you are about to open an attachment. The email is not impressive. It is not addressed to the CEO. It is not written by a genius. The subject line says something dull about a recruitment plan. The filter that reads your mail did not like it, so it dropped it into junk, where unwanted things go to be ignored. But you are curious. Maybe you are expecting something from HR. Maybe you just want to clear your folder. So you drag the message out of junk, back into your inbox, and you double-click the file attached to it. The file is called 2011 Recruitment plan.xls. That is an Excel spreadsheet. Nothing more threatening than rows and columns. And in the moment it opens, nothing appears wrong. There is no alarm, no error, no sign at all that you have just handed a foreign team of intruders a foothold inside RSA. Let us slow down, because the details here matter more than the drama. RSA, then part of the storage giant EMC, was one of the most respected names in security. Its flagship product was SecurID, a two-factor authentication system. Two-factor means you need 2 things to log in. Something you know, which is your password, and something you have, which is that token in your pocket showing a one-time passcode. Even if somebody steals your password, they cannot log in, because they do not have your token. Thousands of corporations relied on it. So did defense contractors. So did government agencies. SecurID was, in a very real sense, the lock on the front door of the industrialized world. Now think about what it means to attack a company like that. You could try to break the cryptography. Mathematicians have spent decades trying to break good cryptography, and they mostly fail, because good cryptography is genuinely hard. It is one of the few things humans have built that works almost exactly as advertised. Or, you could send an email to somebody in accounts and wait. The attackers chose the email. Inside that spreadsheet was an exploit. Specifically, it abused a flaw in Adobe Flash, tracked publicly as CVE 21011-0609. A CVE is just a catalog number, the way libraries give every book an identifier. What made this one dangerous was a word you have probably heard without ever having it explained: 0 day. A 0 day is a flaw that the software vendor does not yet know about. 0 days of warning. 0 days to build a patch, which means every defense built on the assumption that patched software is safe simply does not apply. Your antivirus does not have a signature for it. Your update process cannot save you. The hole is open, and only the attacker knows where it is. When the spreadsheet opened, that exploit ran, and what it installed was a tool called Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is a remote access trojan, usually shortened to RAT. Think of it as a hidden control panel for your machine, operated by somebody who is not in the building. Files can be read, keystrokes can be captured, credentials can be harvested, new commands can be sent in at any time. Your computer is still your computer, and here is where a breach stops being an event and becomes a process. The attackers did not land where they wanted to be. They landed where they could. One workstation, belonging to one employee, with whatever limited access that person happened to have. That is almost never enough. So they did what serious intruders always do next. They moved. They collected credentials. They used those credentials to reach other machines. They looked for accounts with more power than the one they had, and when they found them, they took them. Security people call this lateral movement and privilege escalation, and the plain description is simpler. They walked through the building, one door at a time, borrowing keys as they went. How long can somebody do that inside your network before anybody notices? Eventually, they reached what they had come for. Data related to the SecurID system itself, reported to include the seeds. That word deserves a moment. A seed is the secret starting value inside each individual token. The token uses that seed, combined with the current time, to calculate the 6 digits on its screen. The server does the same calculation independently, and if the numbers match, you are let in. The whole system rests on one assumption, that nobody except RSA and your token knows your seed. Now imagine somebody else has it. The 6 digits stop being unpredictable. The thing you have stops being something only you have. The second factor quietly becomes a first factor, and nobody carrying that token has any way to tell. RSA disclosed the breach publicly. That took a certain amount of institutional courage, and it also had no real alternative, because millions of customers were now holding hardware of uncertain value. Then came the part that turned an embarrassing incident into a historical one. Within months, defense contractor Lockheed Martin reported an attempted intrusion, and that attempt was reported to have used the data taken from RSA. The chain ran from a junk folder email, through a spreadsheet, through a flash bug, through a backdoor, through a stolen set of seeds, and out the other side, into the network of a company that builds fighter aircraft. That is what people mean by a supply chain attack. You do not attack the fortress. You attack whoever supplies the fortress with locks. RSA ended up offering to replace SecurID tokens for its customers. Millions of them. The response reportedly cost tens of millions of dollars, and the reputational cost was harder to price. As for who did it, many researchers and published reports have attributed the campaign to state-linked espionage groups associated with China. That is the reported attribution, and it is worth stating carefully. Attribution in cyber operations is inference, not confession. So, step back and look at the shape of the whole thing. No cipher was broken. The mathematics held. The algorithms behind SecurID were not defeated by some brilliant cryptanalytic breakthrough. Every technical component performed roughly as designed. A human being was fooled. That is the uncomfortable center of this story, and it is why the RSA breach is still taught 15 years later. Security is often sold as a technology problem, because technology can be purchased. But the attackers did not buy their way in, and they did not compute their way in. They wrote a boring email about recruitment, sent it to a handful of ordinary staff, and waited for one person to be slightly curious on a slightly busy day. Was that person careless? It is tempting to say yes. It is also unfair. Consider what actually happened. A plausible business document arrived. The spam filter had already sorted it, which people routinely second-guess, because spam filters are wrong constantly and everybody has fished a real message out of junk. The file was an ordinary format, opened dozens of times a week. Nothing on screen indicated harm. Any system whose security depends on nobody ever having a bad moment is not a security system. It is a wish. Which brings this to you, now, on a machine far more connected than anything in that office in 2011. The exact bug is long dead. Flash itself is gone. But the technique is not, because the technique was never really about Flash. It was about arriving in your inbox, wearing something ordinary. Today, it is an invoice you half expect, a shared document notification, a delivery slip, a message from a colleague whose account was taken over last week and who has no idea. The defenses are unglamorous, and they work. Treat unexpected attachments as strangers, particularly when a filter already flagged them. Confirm through a different channel when a message asks you to open, pay, or log in. Turn on multi-factor authentication everywhere you can. And prefer app-based or hardware keys over codes sent by text. None of that makes you invulnerable. All of it makes you expensive. And attackers, like everyone else, prefer the cheap option. And remember what RSA proves. The organization that fell here was not naive. It was the company the rest of the world hired to think about exactly this. If the phishing email works there, the assumption that it would never work on you is not a security posture. It is a mood. A recruitment email is sitting in your junk folder. Nothing about it looks like the beginning of an international espionage operation. It never does. That is the entire point.